cash, boats, cars. I'm not gonna lie, he wasn't like the first drug dealer that I went out with.
Oh, those were the days in Miami, right? Tomorrow, Netflix premieres filmmaker Billy Corben's latest documentary, a 6-part series called Cocaine Cowboys, The Kings of Miami, in which Billy takes a deep dive into the lives of drug kingpins Willie Falcone and Sal Magluta.
No one covered the case of Willie and Sal more than CBS 4's Jim DeFeeti, who actually acts as a narrator throughout Corben's series. On Sunday, Jim spoke to Corben about his latest venture.
What was it about the Willie and Sal story that intrigued you, and how long have you worked on this project?
I guess starting in about 2009, we started to hear from people involved in the case who knew that we had produced Cocaine Cowboys, that we had a fascination with Miami in this era. People were getting out of witness protection and hitting us up, and that's how it all started. And we began accumulating almost an archive of interviews on this case with defendants and criminal defense attorneys and assistant U.S. attorneys, FBI agents, et cetera. And we accumulated so much footage, in fact, that we realized it was too much to make a one-off feature documentary.
But what I guess I'm really trying to get at is, what was it about their story that really intrigued you? I mean, Miami back in the 80s and 90s, lots of people got arrested and went to prison for cocaine. What was it about Willie and Sal that made them unique characters to you?
Well, first and foremost, this was like a Cuban crime family story. There's a lot of Godfather-esque kind of elements to it. The characters are extremely likable, you know, and you watch the original Cocaine Cowboys, there's some dangerous people there. And so these guys were just local folk heroes, celebrities in the offshore powerboat racing community, where they were world champions, certainly. Well, world champions like 3 or 4 times over, but also just locally. Their tentacles and their ability to reach out into the community. I think you might actually say it in your interview in The Kings of Miami, that there's the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, but in Miami, you were only 1 or 2 degrees from Willie and Sal. And so people with that kind of influence in the community, who touch sort of every sector, public sector, private sector, businesses, families, you know, people would go to them needing rent money, needing tuition money for their kids' school. And they were extremely generous, almost like Robin Hoods, someone describes them as. And so it was intriguing to me, this idea that these kids came over here from Cuba with nothing. In Sal's case, during Pedro Pan, without his parents, stayed here with, you know, as single digits, 5, 6, 7 years old, staying with distant family members in this country and trying to navigate this new world and figure out, what is this mythological American dream I've heard about, you know, here where the streets are paved with gold. But that wasn't the case. They lost everything in Cuba. His family was effectively struggling. They had a great business with a kosher Cuban bakery, but he didn't want to struggle like that. He wanted the opportunity that America promised, and he found it in Miami in that era, which a lot of young people did.
Well, let's deal with the negative side of it. You know, the response to those who say that what you've done is glorify 2 criminals that the government claims, you know, may have been involved in having witnesses killed and you know, other people's lives destroyed, not to mention just the lives that were destroyed by the drugs and the product that they brought into the country. So how do you address the idea that these are not mythic characters or folklore type heroes, but really villains and shouldn't be glorified?
Well, the first thing I would say, just to set the record straight, is that Willie was never accused of or charged with having anything to do with the witness tampering or the homicides. Sal was, in fact, acquitted by a jury for his involvement in those homicides. But I will say that their lifestyle for a time in Miami did have some glamour to it. Miami in the 80s is a sort of, you know, a time that people look back on with great nostalgia, you know, the bad old good old days. But the reality is that, spoiler alert, everybody in these stories ends up dead or in prison. So it's not very glorious. And it's not there's no message that crime pays here. In fact, quite the contrary.
Well, Willie Falcone was released from federal prison after completing his 20-year sentence and was deported. His whereabouts, though, are not known. Magluta remains in prison, where he is serving a life sentence.